What's up, guys? We've got a great DPP battle here from two of the most prominent players in the current metagame. Jimmy Turtwig has some real domination and classic under his belt, and DeepBlueC has been around for a few years now, um, and he has quite the rap sheet as well. So let's get into it. So, the league matchup is going to be as traditionally stall versus offense as you could ever ask for, with these two leagues being just the faces of their respective styles. Not that they can't fit on other kinds of teams, of course, but generally, if you were looking for stall versus offense, this would be a pretty good league matchup to indicate that. Anyway, Stealth Rock going up from Aesop is pretty obvious, but Stealth Rock from Hippowdon is pretty ballsy, considering that Taunt Aesop is not exactly rare. But I guess it was more a case of, um, you know, nothing was really lost if you get taunted there. So because then you would just go to Jirachi as Jimmy did there to soak up an explosion, and offensive teams generally don't like switching into defensive Jirachi. So he would have been fine there, but he got the rocks off, so it was all good. In the case of Choice Band Elf, well, uh, that gives you the ability to not guess the rest of their team, but have a good idea of the rest of their team. And with these kinds of balanced or really defensive teams, especially defensive Jirachi, then generally you can get the job done regardless. So I think it was a worthy risk to be taking. Anyway, Breloom's going to get the hell out of there and go to Suicune, which, judging by how little it took in that Iron Head, is very, very defensive. So it's one of the few things. It's one of the few Pokemon that can really threaten these current stall teams, um, because they don't really go with especially defensive grasses or things like, um, well, I guess bulky Zapdos, but generally that is and something like Calm Mind Roar Latias, which are reasonably popular, then they're just not as effective as say a Shaman or a Celebi would be in consistently staving it off because they've got their own issues. Not that those are the only ways of dealing with Suicune, of course, but basically what I'm trying to say is with the way the metagame is structured and has been for some time now, Suicune is a major threat to a lot of these stall teams. So he's going to get out of there and get his free switch into Breloom and get that sleep off, and he's going to hit Hippowdon. This is a focus punching Breloom. With superpower being so prominent over the past several years, Skarmory has started to get a little too comfortable against Breloom. So focus punch has made a slight return. It's on the up and up, I think, since with Mach Punch it's still really good. After Spore, you're going to get a lot of you're still going to get a good opportunity. Although, of course, superpower has been standard for a while now for a reason. Anyway, so I really like the inclusion of the defensive Suicune on this team because not only is it a huge threat to stall, but because which you want your team to be good against, and Breloom isn't one Pokemon's anti-stall destroyer, but it also has the benefit of doing what you're seeing it do here. Just shrug off Jirachi like nobody's business consistently. I mean, obviously you don't want to do it with a million spikes up, but it's a nice weapon to have. So, and obviously with how physically defensive Scarm has gone back to being with Choice Band Swampert and Gyarados, and of course Breloom, then he's not going to want to be taking boosted Serps as he tries to phase. So it can get out of hand really, really fast. So also he was avoiding the knockoff with his Suicune versus Clefable earlier. Anyway, Starmie comes in and gets the spin-off for just absolute free. So DVC would have appreciated the opportunity to get a calm mind or rest earlier and burn some sleep turns. As Skarm comes in on it now, I mean, I did say that Skarm's not good against it, but that was against the boosted kind. Unboosted, it'll do okay. So, unfortunately, DBC is really prepared for stall because I mean, Azoth League generally does well against these teams because it gets down rocks and denies the opposing rocks. And obviously, that did not happen here. but he's got a Magnezone as well. Of course, Jimmy is prepared and is running Shed Shell Skarmory, which is getting more and more popular these days. And I'm personally not a huge fan, but sometimes it's got to be done. And Gliscor comes in, and that's generally not a happy sight for a lot of teams. I mean, this is a strong stall team, man. It's been seen around, and we're seeing just how fearsome they can be. But this is still anyone's game, obviously. He taunts to prevent Azel from getting those rocks back up, and Jirachi having taken that hit means that it's in danger of dying to explosion, but that would mean no stealth rock. But turns out DPC is running the most ancient of ancient Azel sets, and it's Life Orb Fire Blast, which is uh, inspired. I mean, some would say out of touch, but it destroys some Metagross, who's really falling out of favor with Akaberry, with how common Spectran is. And Lum is important because Machamp's a dick, Roserade's a dick, and so yeah, I think it was a nice choice. And Psychic, obviously, because people use Focus Sash on Machamp a lot less than you'd think, and obviously Life Orb Explosion will tear open anything. Um, so DVC was trying to Fire Blast so he wouldn't explode into the Skarmory, and was also seeing if the taunt would wear off so he could get him back up and maybe force Starmie to spin again. But that wasn't the case, so he decided, you know what, Jimmy was trying to bait him into exploding on the Hippowdon, so I'll just give him that. Because that really helps with, well, it's reasonable to assume that he's got something like a Scarf Flygon, or a Tyranitar, and or a physical Jirachi, so, taking out that Hippo, even if it's asleep, it's nice. And here comes Magnezone, and HP ices Gliscor on the Switch, which is just dirt. And so you may ask, well, why not Clefable? And, that's a valid question. But Clefable is not as safe versus Magnezone as you'd think. And if Clefable goes down to a bomb, then, Suicune's looking just, like game. Honestly, DVC's looking really good at this point regardless. But yeah, he would have been able to pivot and scare the Gliscor out. But then again, you don't really scout for HPA zone these days, man. Honestly, if it's not fire, which is the standard for Scizor, but it's actually grass. Grass has been on the up and up for a while now because Swampert is so common and effective. So HPS is not something you can fault Jimmy for not expecting. I mean, you could say, Clefable would also cover Toxic, but, you know. So DVC, make sure he has his target locked in and explodes on the Clefable, and yeah, no, it's looking like Suicune's just going to be cleaning him up. So this was a really interesting display of how unorthodox offense can bust through even really difficult stalls. So I really enjoyed that. And that Azelf, in conjunction with Latias, Azelf can take out some, or at least severely weaken some prominent Latias targets. So good synergy. Obviously, you've got the Magnezone for the steel help. So, and it specs Latias. So no flimsy scarf trying to clean up because that would not work as well as it would seem, as it would on paper. You want that, you want the strong, because it's already fast with the minigame. You want that really big hitting, you want those really big hits coming from it when it pivots in, not as a revenge killer. And we've got the last Jirachi, so that's going to be a Scarfer. I thought, yeah, this was I picked this game because I thought it was interesting to see how this kind of, I mean, I said unorthodox, but it's not the standard kind of plug and chug offense. I really like how it plays. I think it's something to look to whenever you're thinking, oh man, these stall teams are ridiculous. How am I going to break them? And this game is just like, well, I'm not saying it was easy. It was a back and forth on both sides. Jimmy's team could definitely fuck DVC up, but I'm saying that the tools are definitely there. Um, so yeah, we're just gonna skip through this because this one's pretty much a done deal. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this look into some of the common aspects of the current metagame and some of the more underappreciated aspects. And Let's see what else is there. I feel like I miss a million things in these narrations, always, but I try my best to get everything in there. But yeah, I think this DVC's team is really synergistic, and it gives you options. It's not like, this thing goes wrong and suddenly you're boned. Because, I mean, look at this. He ran into a shed shell scar with a magnezone. Usually that's cause for you to just, X out and say, well, what am I going to do there? But yeah, you have the flexibility and you have the weapons. And this is not to say that this stall team is not really, really good. Um, I was using something like this a while ago, and I advocate for it for whatever you think that's worth. But yeah, Gliscor is amazing because it gives these kinds of teams a sort of offensive weapon. Because I mean, Jirachi is sort of an offensive weapon, but when it's Wish Protect, it's not as locked down as the subsets. It is and it isn't. It's hard to say, but the lack of speed can definitely be like a game changer against Lucario. Of course, the extra bulk can also be enormous against Infernape, taking fire blasts. But something against Gyarados, the extra speed can lack of speed can bite you, or like Mix Knight. But yeah, Gliscor really gives. Also use it out against other defensive teams, because otherwise your options are pretty much just sit there and hope Clefable does something, which isn't the most practical thing in the world. Hey, we're gonna skip ahead until this thing fucking die. Yeah, okay, good. Um, yeah, so that's a bold Starmie, by the way. Which is, I think it's underrated in this current metagame. I mean, I think Infernape is really just terrifying right now. So I'm not 100% sure I feel about it with the mix sets primarily, but I also don't. I'm not sure how good. Well, I'm also not sure if it's worth letting Starmie be taken so easily by Tyranitar. I mean, there's a spread that lets you be fast and still have good odds against it, but Bolt just shuts it down, helps shut down Lucario. Even like crazy things like Life Orb Gyarados, insanely helpful against Banded Pert. So Bold is definitely underrated. I mean, you can even take a Seed Bomb from Breloom, for Christ's sake. So anyway, I don't know why the hell he's not focus punching. Um, but I guess he really just didn't want Starmie to come in. It's a 21, so that was whatever. But all right. So that's it is going to be Psychic, but Laias is going to finish it off. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed and found this little mini analysis and the battle interesting. I did, so I hope you do as well. And I'll catch you next time.